Today is Monday, December 1, 2014, the 335th day of the year. There are 30 days remaining until the end of 2014. On this day in 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, seamstress Rosa Parks refuses to give up her bus seat to a white man and is arrested for violating the city's racial segregation laws, the incident preceding Montgomery's bus boycott. Since 1901, Alabama state law and a Montgomery city ordinance provides for segregation for city buses. 4 rows on either side of the center aisle are reserved for white commuters, while seats in the back of the bus designated for so-called colored riders. Black passengers board buses through the front door only to pay their 10-cent fare, then get off and walk to the back door to enter again to take a seat. Whites and blacks not permitted to sit side by side in any of the rows, and if the bus is crowded, drivers are allowed to ask black riders to give up their seats to white passengers. In 1943, on a stormy day in Montgomery, Rosa Parks enters a city bus through the front door and pays her fare. When the driver, James F. Blake, 30, asks her to go back out into the weather around to the back door, Rosa Parks does so. But before she can reboard the bus back there, Blake closes the doors and drives off, leaving her to walk home in the rain. Fast forward to the evening commute at the end of this workday, December 1, 1955, with Blake once again behind the wheel. When the bus becomes crowded and a white fella boards the bus to find all the seats taken, Blake, 43, asks 4 black passengers to give up their seats and stand at the rear of the coach to allow the white guy to sit down. 3 of the black passengers comply. Rosa Parks, she makes her living as a seamstress. She's returning home from her second job as secretary of the Montgomery chapter of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, refuses. She remembers this driver, Blake, from 12 years before when he drove off and left her standing out in the downpour. She tells him, "I don't think I should have to stand up." Blake warns her, "If you don't stand up, I'll have to call the police." Rosa Parks tells him, "You may do that." Rosa Parks is charged with a violation of the segregation ordinance even though she'd been seated in the black section of the bus. Her arrest leads to an almost immediate boycott of Montgomery city buses by 40,000 black city commuters. On December 5, 1955, Rosa Parks tried on a charge of disorderly conduct. Her trial lasts 30 minutes. She's found guilty and fined $10 plus $4 for court costs. She appeals her conviction, determined to challenge the illegality and inequality of racial segregation in Montgomery. The bus boycott in Montgomery goes on for more than a year, 381 days. Black commuters mostly walking to where they need to get to. Black taxi companies charging only a dime, less than the minimum fare, sometimes being fined by the city for doing so. Until December 20, 1956, when, affirming Browder versus Gale, the U.S. Supreme Court rules Montgomery and state of Alabama bus segregation laws are unconstitutional. As bus ridership in Montgomery, 75% black, the city and its bus line sustain considerable economic damage. Almost immediately after the Supreme Court ruling, the city passes an ordinance permitting black bus passengers to sit anywhere on any city bus. In her autobiography, My Story, Rosa Parks writes, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired, but that isn't true. I wasn't tired physically and no more tired than I usually was at the end of a working day. I was not old, although some people have an image of me being old then. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in." On this day in 1960, Paul McCartney and Pete Best of the Liverpool quintet The Beatles, arrested and 3 days later deported from Hamburg, Germany after accusations of attempted arson. The Reeperbahn, Hamburg, northern Germany on the Danish border, is a district, a street really, with side streets. It means rope walk, street where rope is made. One of Hamburg's 2 entertainment districts in 1960, restaurants, nightclubs, strip joints, bar rooms, strolling independent contractors. Where Germany's economic recovery after the European War 1939-1945 is taking shape at the street level, but not quite the industrial miracle it will shortly become. The lads from Liverpool, John, Paul, George, Stuart Sutcliffe on bass, and Pete, the drummer Pete Best, teenagers, except for Lennon, who's just turned 20, are booked in summer 1960 to play under a contract at the Club Indra, owned and managed by entrepreneur Bruno Koschmider. And then, when Indra closes, the band moves to Koschmider's larger club, the Kaiser Keller. They work all night from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., playing covers in 90-minute sets, alternating with other bands. During the day, they sleep in filthy back rooms at a nearby movie house, the Bombi Kino. It gets rough for them. One night, Johnny's in the crapper with a girl when he's supposed to be working. Koschmider throws a bucket of cold water on him. "How am I supposed to work when I'm soaking wet?"
"Ich don't gotta do naked. Get a fuck out there!
Johnny's on stage, bony bare chest and tight whites with a toilet seat around his neck. Crowd goes ape when the band leaves Koschmider in October 1960 to work for a rival club, the Top 10. Koschmider, furious, takes revenge, alerting authorities that George Harrison at 17, underage. On November 30, 1960, Harrison deported. The band gets the message. Party over. Returning to the Kino to pick up their stuff. McCartney, 18, and Pete Best, 19. Set fire to a condom and hang it flaming on a nail in the wall for illumination. The wall scorched, but no real damage. Koschmider's a raging man. Crowd in ill humor gets a darkish mood on. Way past redemption, calls the Polizei, who on this day in 1960 charged McCartney and Best attempted arson. They spend the night in custody, then December 4, 1960, deported. Days later, Lennon's work permit revoked. He say went to Hamburg, a boy came back a man. Beatles bassist Stuart Sutcliffe leaves the band, stays in Hamburg with girlfriend Astrid Kircher to study art. Sutcliffe dies there, cerebral hemorrhage, ruptured aneurysm, a bleeding on the brain. Less than 2 years later, April 1962. American author, screenwriter, and Nobel laureate William Faulkner writes, "Some things you must always be unable to bear. Some things you must never stop refusing to bear. Injustice and outrage and dishonor and shame. No matter how young you are or how old you've got. Not for kudos, not for cash, your picture in the paper, nor money in the bank either. Just refuse to bear them." From Rutland, Vermont, this is Richard Alcott speaking.